Women can sense desperation instantly, even if you hide it. Most men think desperation is something women notice only when a man says too much. Too many compliments, too many texts, too much chasing. But desperation is much deeper than words, because desperation is emotional, and emotions change behavior long before words reveal them. That's why women often sense desperation almost immediately, even when a man believes he is hiding it perfectly. The truth is, emotional neediness changes everything about a person's energy. It changes reactions, timing, attention, emotional control, body language, tone, patience, emotional pressure. And women are extremely sensitive to those emotional shifts, not because they are analyzing every detail consciously, but because human beings naturally feel emotional energy through behavior, especially in attraction. A desperate man rarely feels calm, even when he tries to appear confident, because underneath the confidence is fear. Fear of losing attention, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear of being ignored, and fear always leaks into behavior eventually. This is why some men look confident on the surface, but still feel emotionally weak in interactions. Because confidence is not only words. Real confidence affects emotional stability. It affects reactions. It affects patience. It affects emotional independence. And women notice those things very quickly, sometimes within minutes. One of the biggest signs of hidden desperation is emotional urgency. A man suddenly becomes too emotionally available too fast, too responsive, too focused, too invested in every small interaction. And while he believes this shows interest, it often creates emotional pressure instead, because attraction usually grows best in emotional freedom, not emotional pressure. The more emotionally desperate a man becomes, the more he starts trying to control outcomes. He watches responses closely, overthinks silence, analyzes changes in energy, needs reassurance constantly, and without realizing it, he slowly shifts from calm presence to emotional dependence. And emotional dependence changes attraction immediately. Women often notice this shift before men do, because once a man's emotional state starts depending heavily on female validation, his behavior becomes emotionally predictable. Now his reactions are controlled by attention. If she responds warmly, he feels secure. If she pulls away slightly, his energy changes immediately. And that inconsistency reveals emotional instability. Emotionally grounded men feel different for one reason. Their emotional state is not constantly controlled by external validation. That creates calmness, patience, emotional control. And emotional control always feels more attractive than emotional desperation. Always. A desperate man struggles to stay present because his mind is focused on outcome. Does she like me? Am I losing her? Should I text again? What changed? And this constant internal pressure changes how he behaves externally. Now conversations feel forced. Attention feels heavy. Energy feels anxious, even if his words sound confident. This is why desperation is difficult to hide, because people feel emotional intention beneath behavior. And women are especially observant of emotional intention, not just what a man says, but why he is saying it. For example, there's a difference between genuine confidence and validation seeking disguised as confidence. A confident man speaks because he wants to express himself. A desperate man often speaks to secure approval emotionally. And emotionally, those two energies feel completely different. Another thing desperation changes is patience. Emotionally desperate men struggle with uncertainty. Silence feels threatening. Distance feels painful. Delayed responses feel personal. And because they fear emotional loss constantly, they react too quickly, too emotionally, too intensely. But calm men behave differently, not because they don't care, but because their emotional identity is not collapsing every time uncertainty appears. That stability creates emotional strength, and emotional strength feels safe psychologically. Most men think attraction comes from proving interest harder, But attraction often weakens when emotional pressure becomes too obvious, because pressure removes emotional freedom. Now the interaction no longer feels natural. It feels emotionally loaded. An emotionally loaded energy changes how people experience your presence. This is why desperation quietly destroys attraction. Not because caring is unattractive, but because emotional dependency changes behavior in ways people instinctively feel. The energy becomes tense, approval-seeking, emotionally reactive, outcome-focused, and attraction struggles to grow inside emotional tension like that. Women usually feel strongest attraction around men who seem emotionally centered. Men who can care deeply without emotionally panicking. Men who do not overreact to every emotional shift. Men who remain grounded during uncertainty. Because grounded energy creates emotional safety without emotional pressure. And that combination is rare. Very rare. Another reason desperation becomes visible quickly is because emotionally needy behavior often lacks emotional restraint. The man starts over-explaining, over-texting, over-giving, overreacting, trying too hard to maintain emotional certainty. And the harder he tries to force connection, the more unnatural the interaction often feels. Real confidence does not force emotional outcomes. It allows space. Space for attraction. Space for curiosity. Space for emotional freedom. But desperation tries to close space immediately. And when space disappears completely, curiosity usually disappears with it. This is why emotionally calm men often create stronger attraction naturally. Not because they are pretending to care less, but because they are emotionally secure enough to handle uncertainty without collapsing internally. And emotional security changes everything. The way a man speaks, the way he reacts, the way he handles silence, the way he handles distance, the way his attention feels emotionally. At the deepest level, women can sense desperation because desperation changes emotional energy long before words reveal it. It leaks through reactions, through urgency, through emotional pressure, through fear-driven behavior. And people feel those emotional signals instinctively. The truth is, attraction usually grows strongest when emotional energy feels calm, grounded, and emotionally free. Not when someone is desperately trying to secure certainty every second. Because certainty forced through fear never feels attractive emotionally. It feels heavy, and heavy emotional energy changes attraction fast. At the end of the day, the men who create the strongest attraction are usually not the men trying hardest to be chosen. They're the men who remain emotionally centered whether attention increases or decreases. Because emotional self-control is rare now. Very rare. And rare emotional energy always stands out. Especially in a world filled with emotional desperation, validation seeking, and constant need for reassurance. That is why women sense desperation instantly. Because emotionally, desperation changes everything long before words ever do. Follow for more if you want to understand women better.